Hi, I'm Chris Stevens, CEO of Coda Minerals.
Hi, I'm Kudzai Mtsambiwa, CFO of Coda Minerals. Okay, Chris. So, what are we doing here? We've got mics in front of us, and yeah, what's going on?
Yeah, it's all a bit awkward, isn't it? So what we're trying to do is provide a little bit more information, a little bit more engagement with our shareholders. Um, Obviously, you see a lot of these CEO directly to camera Zoom interviews. They're ubiquitous, and I'm starting to think they're very painful. This isn't how interviews go in the real world. And just actually sitting down and having a conversation and videoing the conversation while we talk about what's going on in Coda should give people a little bit more information and engagement, I think.
Okay, and I guess the question is this a podcast?
Absolutely not. I mean, we're not really trying to provide the next great Money of Mine podcast or anything like that, but a little bit more insight into Coda, so you could call it a codcast.
Okay, a podcast, right? um, so I guess this is Coda's attempt at investor relations.
Yeah, look, I mean, investor relations it's a bit of a kind of strange art in the industry, isn't it? I mean, the money that gets spent by many companies, even very small ones, is astonishing. And every time you see one of those direct to camera, you know, interviews, you see a huge, there's often a huge cost involved, several $1,000s. Now, my hobby is audio engineering outside of work. I've got all the equipment myself for my hobbies, and I thought let's give this a try. It may not be the most polished outcome, but it isn't costing shareholders $3,000 or $4,000 a time. And if we get it right and people actually watch it and find this interesting, if we update this every couple of weeks and really provide proper information, I could see this being hopefully a very cost effective for shareholders, but also really good information.
Okay. So I guess the aim of this is to get timely and information to shareholders so they know what's going on in the company, what to look out for, and what to
Yeah,
look forward to. Okay. And so I
absolutely.
guess when it comes to Coda at this current time, what is the latest news? And I see we raised capital
Yeah.
pretty recently. Please could you sort of go into the capital raise and what
Yeah.
Coda plans to do with those funds?
I like how you say you see we raised capital recently. It's not like we were both involved in 12, 14-hour days for a week or two to get that done. But look, we've been looking to raise capital for a while. Raising capital is challenging in the current market. And we've looked at various ways of doing it. I think I've been involved in at least 7 capital raisings in the years I've been running companies, and you never get it perfectly right. The market conditions never allow you to. But the important thing is when there is a demand and when you can get a placement away in a fashion which doesn't harm the company's share price, doesn't harm the company's register, and doesn't cost too much to do, then that's what you do. So people have seen we've raised about $2.8 million. That's been done to supportive long-term larger shareholders, and look, they were all what's known as a S708 shareholder, so a sophisticated shareholder. That means it can be done in a certain way without certain costs. And so I think that was a very successful outcome. And we've obviously had quite a lot of engagement with shareholders around that as well. But ultimately, taking away that cum raise discount and giving the company working capital to move forwards, I believe very strongly was the right thing to do. And in the way that we did it, I mean, I think you crunched the numbers. How much did we save by doing this as a company-led placement without all the usual broker and engagement?
Yeah, so I guess the savings when it came to raising the funds was around $200,000 to $300,000, which pretty much for an exploration company like Coda is, that money can go directly back into exploration and developing the Elizabeth Creek story.
Yeah, it's like a 7 to 10% saving on the total raise doing it this way. It is obviously much harder. We had to run all the admin and also make sure the demand was there as well. But we were very fortunate that the demand was there from existing shareholders. And obviously, the copper price will have helped with that a bit, as well as what I think has been quite strong news flow as we've optimized this project as well.
Yeah. And then I guess the next question, which everyone who's watching this video is probably wondering, is what are we going to do with the money, and what are the sort of next steps, and what work is Coda currently undertaking?
Yeah, I mean, the ironic thing about raising money is that it actually gives us much greater strength to go and look at funding this project properly. And we have been in talks with multiple parties for quite a while, again, as you well know, and those are advancing in this copper market with some of the macro risks. That has been challenging, and I note that there haven't been any major strategic investments in the copper space, certainly in the sort of mid-tier and junior side for a while. I believe very strongly that'll change. So the first is balance sheet strength. That will give us that strength to continue discussions and not to feel under pressure in terms of funding. The second is technical work. And again, we talk about squeezing the lemon, but on the project, what we're really trying to do is make sure that we get as much out of this project as possible. You've seen multiple scoping study updates. We keep improving things. And we understand each time we do that, we understand the project better. We do better work in more detail. The last piece of work with the underground mechanical cutting involved mineralization being sent to independent laboratories in Switzerland. It involved working with a major independent OEM supplier out of Denver, Colorado. This most recent piece of work that we're doing is looking at improving the copper recoveries. And improving recoveries, the cobalt's wonderful. It's Carolite. It floats beautifully. It recovers to final product beautifully. But the copper, if you can squeeze another 10+% recovery out of that, that's a huge prize. I mean, that's effectively like increasing the size of your resource by 15, 18%. So that work is ongoing, and we're looking forward to getting those results soon. And then also planning the next stages of exploration as well. Nothing significant. We're not talking about major campaigns, but we have some really exciting areas out to the east of the existing resource. And then again, that all important funding, getting this project moving. That's a big focus for us.
Okay. So I guess in the current copper price environment, we can see copper is in mining news pretty much daily at this current point in time. Copper price currently sitting at your $9,300 a ton price. How does that sort of affect Coda as a company in terms of the next steps and funding, as you mentioned?
Yeah, I mean, obviously we're not producing copper, so the day-to-day copper price is not necessarily hugely relevant, but I think this shows a few trends. The first is that, there's fear over the last 12 months as to the macro. Copper's called Dr. Copper for a reason. It has a huge impact. The macro has a huge impact on copper. The second is that groups that are looking to fund the next stage of copper projects are starting to engage to a much greater extent. You can see retail interest, you can see fund interest, and you can see strategic interest really growing. So this copper trend, it's doing exactly what was forecast, and it's doing exactly what people have been saying it would do. But you know what it's like? You're waiting for something to happen. It feels longer, and then it starts to happen. So it's an exciting time for copper. I believe this is just the start of major changes. What are you seeing as well? You're obviously watching it as well.
Yeah, yeah. Obviously, keeping a very close eye on the copper market dynamics and sort of the current supply crunch helping out copper. Um, uh, and that's sort of the reason why the prices are where they are today. And as you mentioned earlier, it seems like it's the start of the change and it should continue from here.
Yeah, I think I was talking earlier. Anecdotally, I've heard that some of the smelters in China are paying positive TCRCs. So when you take a concentrate and you treat it in a smelter, obviously as a concentrate producer, most companies would be paying for smelters to do that work for them and effectively take a concentrate into final products. Anecdotally, I've heard that there are smelters out there paying companies to take the concentrate. You can't just turn a smelter on and off. It's a major chemical process. And so, that's how tight this concentrate is getting. And we're obviously not looking to produce a concentrate as a final sell product. We're looking to go through to final product, but that all feeds through into a major copper crunch. And again, just that tightness of supply. Most of the world's copper is coming from big companies. I think it's about 90% of copper comes from about 12 projects globally. This, the second tier, the smaller projects need a much higher incentive price to get into production. And I personally think this is the start of that incentive price moving.
Okay. And so I think this is a good spot to stop this discussion and video. And what can stakeholders and shareholders and anyone else watching this video expect going forward in terms of company updates?
Look, let's try and get this done every 2 weeks. We'll try and update the CodCast every couple of weeks, and we'll bring Matt, our exploration manager, on, and if we can get Katrina on camera too. She builds all our models and is in charge of all our project controls. And if you and I have a few more conversations on camera, and really, this is obviously we can't give any information which is material or not in the public domain. But what we can do is provide a lot more information and background and thinking, and just try and give people a bit more understanding that isn't a straight CEO to webcam video, which, as I said, I find very painful these days. We've had too many of them.
Awesome. Yeah. Thank you very much for that chat, Chris. And
Thanks, Kudzai.
I hope our viewers have enjoyed listening to what we had to say at Coda.
Yep. If you've got this far, thank you very much for watching, and we'll keep updating. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you.
Cheers.